Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final stretch for our course, Food Chemistry lecture. Previously, we had discussed about the macronutrient, which is the carbohydrate, as well as the lipid, and we stopped our discussion on lipid on the reactions of lipids. So today we are going to further discuss the reactions of lipids as well as lipid metabolism. So allow me to share with you my screen. Okay, so checking everything. My mic is on. I am recording and my screen is also there. All right, so let us first have a review on the chemical reactions of lipids or fats. So we already learned from previous discussions, carbohydrates are made up of sugar, and carbohydrates are known to be the energy givers. Okay, on the other way, fats, okay, when we do not do work and eat more food, those carbohydrates will be temporarily stored as glycogen. And if we do not use the glycogen stored in our body, that will be permanently stored as fats. Okay. We already learned also that fats or lipids has the highest calorific value compared with the carbohydrates and proteins. After lipids, we're gonna have proteins for the last two modules that we're going to have for this course. All right, so let us now proceed to the chemical reactions of fats. I already discussed this last time, and we will just have the review. Okay, so again, we have the hydrolysis, the reaction of fats with enzymes, acids, or bases. Okay, so when we say hydrolysis, it is basically the reaction with water or the moisture. Okay, and this water here doesn't literally mean the water that we have because fat and water never mix. Oil and water never mix. They are immiscible with each other. How are we going to break down the fats or the lipids? We are making use of the enzymes, the acids, or the bases. Okay? And in our body, our liver secretes the bile. The bile act as an it will act as an enzyme, or not really an enzyme, but it will break down the fat molecules, okay, so that the fat will mix with water. Okay, so it is an emulsifier. Okay, so another thing, an example is the vinegar as well as the the mayonnaise. When we make mayonnaise, we have the vinegar and the oil. Vinegar and oil do not mix, and what we do, we mix egg yolk into it because the egg yolk will act as an emulsifier in order for the vinegar and oil to mix. Okay, so that is in making mayonnaise. You have your vinegar, you have your oil, you mix them together, but vinegar and oil cannot mix. They are immiscible. That's why you need the egg yolk. The egg yolk will act as an emulsifier to bind the vinegar and oil together. Okay, so that will happen also with regards to fat. Fat or lipids and water never mix with each other. That's why you need the bile. Bile is secreted by the liver in order to break down the fats and mix them with water. Okay, so this is now hydrolysis. Okay, so this is our triglyceride or the fat or the lipid mix or react it with the enzyme, acid, or bases, and it will be broken down into glycerol and fatty acids. We already learned that triglyceride are made up of glycerol and fatty acids. Okay, so again, this is hydrolysis, the breaking down of fat with the enzyme, acids, or bases. Now, next chemical reaction is the saponification. When we say saponification, it is the heating of a fat with a strong base. And this is the process in making soap. Okay, so soaps actually come from fats, all right, with the use of a strong base. In this case, it is sodium hydroxide or caustic soda, or the most common term for that is lye. Okay, so when you react lye with fat in the presence of heat, it will then be converted into glycerol and sodium palmitate, and the sodium palmitate is the soap. Okay, this is in making hard. We are going to stay in the call. Okay, this is the process of making hard soap. Okay, now in making soft soap, we use potassium hydroxide instead of sodium hydroxide. So that is saponification, the process of making soap, the reaction of the fat or lipid with a strong acid in order to create soap. And of course, the byproduct, which is the glycerol. Okay, next is hydrogenation. We already learned what hydrogenation is, the adding of hydrogen in order to break down the double bond of the unsaturated fatty acid. Break down this double bond, add the hydrogen, so it will become single bond with the hydrogen atoms attached to it already. And that is in the presence of a catalyst at very high temperature. That is hydrogenation, the conversion of unsaturated fatty acid to saturated fatty acid. And fourth is rancidity, that comes from the root word rancid, or in our Visayan term, it is ranso. If you go to the market, the pork is just there at the bench, okay, and in due time, it will become rancid, okay. It will develop an unpleasant odor and taste because of the contact of the fat with moisture in air. Okay, so that is rancidity. Okay, so this is due to the reactions, which are the hydrolysis as well as oxidation, sorry, the process of reacting the fat or lipid with oxygen. Okay, now for hydrolytic rancidity occurs more quickly in the presence of heat and moisture. Okay, so for that one, for oxidative rancidity, attacks a bond to yield product, which ultimately polymerize to form a hard resinous material. Okay, so when you go to the market, you can tell if the pork that is available for sale is fresh if it is not rancid or if it is not having a foul odor. Okay, now let us now proceed to the lipid metabolism. So when we're saying metabolism, we already discussed about carbohydrate metabolism. It is the synthesis and degradation, okay, of the macromolecule. Okay, lipid is a macromolecule, so it will break down the lipid. So how does metabolism of lipids occur? I have here an illustration for that. Okay, so lipids are fats. It will be broken down into glycerol and fatty acids, as what I had shown earlier, hydrolysis process or the hydrolysis reaction. It will break down into glycerol and fatty acids. Now, the glycerol will be further broken down into dihydroxyacetone phosphate and to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, and it will enter the glycolysis cycle. We already discussed about glycolysis during the carbohydrate metabolism, wherein it will become pyruvic acid and acetyl coenzyme A, which now enters the Krebs cycle. Okay, we also discussed Krebs cycle already. So everything, okay, from carbohydrate as well as lipids, it will undergo glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Okay. On the other hand, for the fatty acids, of course, it is with the help of lipase. Lipase is an enzyme. Through beta oxidation, it will again become acetyl coenzyme A, and the acetyl coenzyme A will go to the Krebs cycle. Okay, so for carbohydrates, it will undergo glycolysis and Krebs cycle, as well as the lipids or fats. It will undergo glycolysis in the Krebs cycle also. So for metabolism of lipids, what we need, where was that? Okay, sorry. Okay, what we need is the bile from the liver. Okay, so I had told you earlier that the liver secretes bile in order to break down the lipids. Okay, and for that, if we eat food with high cholesterol, we can develop a disease which is called a fatty liver, because more fats will be deposited into our liver that will give us a disease. Okay, so when we say fatty liver, you can search that one. What happens to your liver? How does your liver look like? And if you also take too much alcohol, you will be having a chance of getting fatty liver also. Okay. I have another. Wait a minute. Where was that? Here. Okay, so we have here our comparison of the metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, or lipids, and proteins. Okay, so for proteins, again, this will be for the remaining two modules. Okay, so as a review, for carbohydrates, it will undergoing this metabolism cycle. Okay, unused carbohydrates will be stored as glycogen. All right, and for this process, it is called glycogenesis. And if you do not eat more carbohydrates, okay, that glycogen will return back into glucose in the process called glycogenolysis, and then it will go to the glycolysis, wherein pyruvic acid is the last product. Pyruvic acid will be um, converted into acetyl coenzyme A if there is oxygen, and if there is no oxygen, it will be converted into lactic acid, and the acetyl coenzyme A will go to the Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle is also known as the citric acid cycle. Okay, so for fats and lipids, as our topic today, the fats and lipids will be broken down into glycerol and three fatty acids, and it will go to the fatty acid spiral, then converted into acetyl coenzyme A, and to Krebs cycle. Okay, and if you do not, this acetyl coenzyme A will also be converted back into fats or lipids through the process called lipogenesis. Okay, so remember the glycogen that you will not use, okay, the glycogen that you will not use, and the proteins that you will not use through doing work, this acetyl coenzyme A will be stored into fats and lipids. All right. So be very careful in everything that we partake, okay? And make sure that we use all the calories that we give to our body, so that there will be no stored fats and no stored lipids in our body, because that will be um very bad for our health. Okay, so high cholesterol food, it will clog our arteries. Okay, so giving us heart diseases. All right, so if our arteries, our nerves are clogged, the capillaries are clogged with the cholesterol, okay, that means that the blood will not flow easily, so there will be rupture of the blood vessels, and rupture of blood vessels will give us stroke. Okay, so God forbid we will not have those diseases. All right, so after the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, it will go to the electron transport chain, wherein ATPs are now being produced. All right, so that is all about lipid metabolism. So in everything that we eat, We make sure that we are going to do work, make sure that we are going to use the calories that we are eating so that the fats or lipids will not be stored in our body permanently. Okay, because the visceral fat, those are the fat that gets inside our internal organs, are very catastrophic to our health. Okay, so however, fats and lipids are, of course, very important. They are still very important in our diet. We already discussed that from previous module. Okay, so there is what we call actually as a ketogenic diet. Okay, wherein it is a high fat, adequate protein, and low carbohydrate diet. What is the purpose or the goal of this diet? The purpose of this diet is to burn more fats rather than carbohydrates in our body. So, some people make use of the diet wherein they eat more protein compared with carbohydrates. Okay, so for this diet, it and what we need in our body from the food pyramid, the carbohydrates must be more, and then next will be protein, and then at the topmost of the pyramid are the fats, because the fats, that's what we are going to consume less. Okay, because carbohydrates are the energy giver, therefore we must eat more carbohydrates. However, some people do not eat more carbohydrates, they eat more protein. Okay, and for this one, the ketogenic diet, this diet has more fat compared with protein and carbohydrates. So this is in reverse. Okay, why? Because it has the aim of burning more fats from your body compared with the carbohydrates. Okay, because in this, um, keto comes actually from the ketones. Okay, so the ketones from the fats that we're going to partake or eat, okay, will be converted into ATPs. Okay, so it will burn the fat that we have in our body. All right, so what will be an example of this ketogenic diet? Okay, so for ketogenic diet, again, go heavy on fat and light on carbs when preparing the meals. Okay, but you have to consider doing this diet. You have to consult your physician for this one. Okay, so an example. This is just an example of a ketogenic meal plan. Okay, for breakfast, you have the cheese, onion, pepper omelette with 2 eggs, full fat cream cheese pancakes. Okay, so take a note, full fat. Okay, so there must be more fat on that and no flour. Okay, because flour is carbohydrate. Flour, that is starch, that is carbohydrate. So take note again, for ketogenic diet, more fat, less carbs. Okay, and for lunch, full fat yogurt, keto Caesar salad, and chicken lettuce wrap. Okay, so again, full fat is being suggested here. And for dinner, you also have the butter sauteed mushrooms. Take note, you are using butter that is high in fat. Okay, bacon as well as pork and full fat mozzarella. Okay, so there are more fat in this diet compared with the carbohydrates as well as the protein. And some ideas for snacks, you have the hard cooked eggs, celery with almond butter. Take note the use of butter. Again, that is almond butter. This is a healthier butter. Black olives with cheddar, no beef, energy bites, and so on and so forth. So again, if you are going to use this ketogenic diet, you have to consult your physician. Okay, so that is all about our topic for this module. This is your last module, and module submission will, no, not last module. This is your first module for final, and the submission will be due on May 15. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.